In this episode, Whitesnake, Runner, Rush and Anastacia.
Here's an album for you, Custardites. Are you ready and willing? Are you ready and willing? Are you ready and willing? As I am. Ready and willing. Whitesnake. Now, this is an album which requires a story. Way back now, way back in the day, it's 1980. Still by 1980, I think. Probably April, May time. And I'm about to leave school. Can you believe that? Look at the state of me now. And look, time flies. And all that, 43 years ago, don't forget. So, there you go. So, those of you that have been watching previous episodes of this random album and generator game, which I must just point out here, this is the final episode of the random album generator game series 1 on the 13th episode. We're going to do this like an old-fashioned way of doing things, 13 episodes of things. We're going to move on to concentrate on the spotlight on and the new series of New Live and Rare for the next probably 6 weeks to 2 months, 6 episodes each of that, and then we'll get a second series of the random album generator game if the powers that be decide that we can carry on. But as the powers of be, or the powers that be, should I say, or me, Lord Custard of Custardness, as I've been christened this week, there probably will be. Anyway, back to the story. You'll remember, if you've been listening and watching older videos about how I told the story, how I got into Deep Purple and all the splinter bands and how I pulled the pieces together, because back in 1980, as the majority of the people who will be watching this, I'm sure, will be aware, because you're probably of a similar sort of vintage as me, so this bit is probably just for the younger viewers, as they say. So with no internet in those days, you couldn't press a button and find out everything you wanted to know about a band. You learnt from the record press, from people that you met in bars and pubs, and I hadn't quite left school yet, so I wasn't going in that many bars and clubs. You could get away with it in those days, you can't now. We're going in a few. And what you read on the back of album sleeves and what you put together yourself. So, to cut to the chase, the situation was, those of you that remember, I'd heard Rainbow on the radio all night long since you've been gone. I thought, oh, these are good, I like these. I was still into my sort of like listening to the radio, buying singles at the time. Decided that I was going to get into the album scene. Decided I was going to get in. I like the rock music type thing, and I went out and got through the Britannia Music Club a couple of Rainbow albums and a Thin Lizzy album, a Yellow album, and was initially disappointed when I opened the Rainbow album and found out they got a different singer on it. It wasn't Graham Bonnet who was singing those hit singles, and then I played it and it was Ronnie James Dio, and I thought, wow, this is even better. And that then led to somebody saying to me, that Richie Blackmore guy was in a better band than Rainbow. It was this band called Deep Purple. And I went out and bought a Deep Purple album, and it turned out that Richie Blackmore wasn't on it, because it was the only one without him on at the time, Come Taste the Band. But I loved that as well. And so then I got into all the Purple stuff. So anyway, to get back to what I'm talking about, I'm sitting on a desk in the 5th year common room or whatever it was, before about to leave school, and we got the radio, one of those big old, remember the big old school radio, great big square thing, and we got it onto Radio 1. And Fall for Your Loving, the opening track on this, came on. And I thought, oh, this is good, I've not heard it before, this is good, I think it's just been released as a single. And I thought, well, this sounds really good. It's quite like Rainbow, and it sounds a bit like Deep Purple as well. I think I like this. Anyway, forget about it. A couple of days later, you're on the radio again, and you think, oh, it's really good, that. Now, don't forget, by this time, I just started buying albums and stuff. So I was pop singles, man, and all that sort of thing. Anyway, that week, on the Thursday, because the Thursday was the day the music papers came out, I got probably the Sounds, I think it was. I used to buy, I used to see what was on the front, who was in it, and I'd alternate between Sounds and New Musical Express, and sometimes a Record Mirror, and even Melody Maker. And then I started to have a little bit more ready cash, or a bit more of a varied interest, I'd buy 2 or 3 of them, or sometimes I'd buy them all. Because they were only cheap in those days, like 50, 60p or something for a paper, whereas now it's probably about 4 or 5 quid. Anyway, I'm flicking through the old music paper and I see a full-page advert for this album and a forthcoming tour. Now, as you see the pictures on here, the advert had got the names on as well of the people in the band. And I looked at it and I thought, I recognise those names. David Cordell and Ian Pace and John Lord. Ian Pace and John Lord, they're in Deep Purple. And so's David Cordell. He was on that Comtaste the Band album. He isn't on all the Gillen ones, but he's on, and I thought by this time I'd already got Burn and Stormbringer as well, because I really got into it really quick. And they're the same people, I'm sure they are. So I go racing upstairs, the amount of albums I've got now, dug out my record list, Come Taste the Band out. There it is. David Cordell, Ian Pace and John Lord on Come Taste the Band, and they're on this as well. Oh, this is good. And they're still going now. Oh, this is fantastic. So, of course, what did I do? Straight out, bought this. A couple of days later, Love Hunter, and then Northwind. Northwind's had already got that, and Trouble, and picked up a copy of the EP as well. And it was great. I was in total heaven. This was brilliant. I just discovered a new band that I didn't know existed, and they got half of the people in them were in a band I liked already, and then I played it, and the rest of them were just as good as all the people who were in Deep Purple. It was brilliant. So this album is sort of pivotal in my sort of record collecting because it joined everything together, if you like, and that made me then go and search out everything that everybody had done and all sorts of things. And I've very quickly found out about things like Pace After Lord. I'd already discovered Gillen by this point, the Gillen band who put out Glory Road, I think, that year, wasn't it? And whatever. So it's difficult to explain, but it was just, I can still remember sitting on the sofa in my parents' house reading my record newspaper. I'm pretty sure it would have been South, with my hair growing longer and longer and whatever, and starting to be a little bit more, I want to look like David Coverdale type setup, and racing up and discovering who it was, and then it was brilliant. And so that's why it's always have a special place for me, this album. But anyway, to get onto the music on it, well, I think this is the best Whitesnake album. I know a lot of people whose opinion I do value will say that Come and Get It, the album that came out the next year, is a better rounded album, is slightly better. I can see where they're going from, but for me, this one's, I suppose, maybe it's because I'm looking through rose tinted glasses and it's got that connection, if you like, that this was my introduction to Whitesnake, and it was at that point, it was like, this is where they're at now. This was their current album, and it was like, right, this is it. This is me jumping on, as Coverdale used to call it himself, HMS Whitesnake. This is where I got on board, and so that makes it special. Love Hunter's a brilliant album as well. So's Trouble, but this is fantastic. Now let's go through it a little bit, if you like. Fool for Your Love, and obviously the first track, the single that I'd heard on the radio. Now, there's a couple of interesting facts about this. One I know is true. One I'm not 100% sure, but it seems to work. The one that I know is true is that they originally wrote the song for B.B. King and decided it was too good and kept it for themselves. And it's a good job they did, because it's pretty spectacular. The second story that I've heard, and I obviously can't divulge my sources on this in case it is true, and I didn't find out this until quite a long time later, is that this was released in retaliation, if you like, to Rainbows All Night Long, because there was a bit of bad blood, bit of bad blood between Blackmore and Coverdale at the time, And the suggestion was made to me by somebody who was close enough to know, or maybe it was being mischievous, I don't know, that the music or the riff, the structure or whatever, so All Night Long, started off in purple with the lyric to Fall for Your Loving. So the task for you all now, would-be singers, is to get your laptops set up, get your microphone, get Audacity on, and try singing the lyrics to Fall for Your Loving to the music of all Night Long and see if it works. I don't know how true that is, but that was what I heard. Anyway, it doesn't matter because it's still a great song. Anyway, Sweet Talker again. That's just this is as heavy as you need to get from me. It's great sort of like strutting, sort of real in your face stuff. I'm pretty sure people will be going, I'm not sure about the lyrics these days. I think there are people who are probably going, not sure about the lyrics in those days as well. But what you see is what you get with David Coverdale. It's all good tongue-in-cheek stuff for me. Then of course you've got the title track, Ready and Willing, which went down a storm live. Now then we get on to the two tracks that are probably the two tracks that make it my favourite. Or actually, we go on to the three tracks. We pretend it's the CD version. We don't need to worry about flipping over sides. Carry a Load, Blind Man, and Ain't Gonna Cry No More. Now, a lot of people say that Coverdale should have been sued because Blind Man is just a free song and he's just like copied them. That's a load of old nonsense. Yes, it sounds the same sort of structure as a free song. Yeah, it's got a similar sort of feeling about it, subject-wise and everything, to one or two free songs. But I mean, quite a lot of free songs sounded like quite a lot of old blues songs as well. You've got to listen to things like I'm a Mover, and you can hear the start of that in loads of places. All bands are doing it. It's not a bad thing. I think it's almost a sort of way of honouring those bands and saying, yeah, we like the way you sounded, so we want to make something that sounds a little bit similar to it. I quite happily listen to Blind Man off here and Be My Friend by Free, one after the other, and I wouldn't think that I want to rip the other one off because they're good songs. The Blind Man on here, I think, is close to one of Coverdale's best ever vocal performances, and everybody that knows me knows he's right up there. We're talking about sort of pre-poodle haircut Whitesnake. David Coverdale is right up there in the top bracket for me. The track, incidentally, had been recorded first of all on his first solo album, which was called Whitesnake. A very different version, that one. And a lot of people, again, will say to you that the version on the solo album is much better than the version on this album. Again, that's one of those things where you can put a case for both. The way the song is put together on the solo album is totally, it's got a different feel to it. It's almost like it could be a different song, but I just find it very difficult to think of a version of a song that has got John Lord on it, and the bass on it can be inferior to one that hasn't. And Coverdale sings it perfectly on this. It's done in a slightly different way. This is more a song like it's a song in a band, whereas the version on Whitesnake is very much a solo vocalist's performance, and they both, I think, stand perfectly well next to each other. If I had to choose one to play, I would probably be in the minority because I would pick this one, and I think most people do go for the version on the first solo album, Whitesnake. Now, the thing with that is everybody says, it's just a rip-off of a free track. Well, it isn't a rip-off of a free track for me, and like I said, I've said already, the track before, Carry Your Load, now that to me, that sounds more like Free and Bad Company than Blind Man does, equally as much. But that's not a bad thing. It's one of those. It's good. It's a properly nice, well-structured song with a good melody, and I love it. It's brilliant. In fact, I think I'd probably prefer Carry a Load and Blind Man to the three that come before. And then you get on to side two, of course, and you kick off with Ain't Gonna Cry No More, which starts off with that lovely sort of acoustic stuff and then just explodes. It almost became a sort of Whitesnake sort of trademark thing, didn't it? Whether you got on to tracks on later albums that did the same sort of thing, where they started off really quietly and then erupted, pretty much getting it right up until Here I Go Again, really. I mean, that's, but I don't. Nobody can tell me that isn't amongst one of the best things that this or any other band have recorded. Admittedly, then maybe things start to just drop off a little bit. The second side, Love Man's a pretty standard 12-bar blues type thing with a pretty standard tongue-in-cheek risque lyric from Mr. Coverdale, and then Black and Blue again. Another one is always a throwaway sort of almost status quo song, which was recorded live somewhere. And then you got She's a Woman, which again is a bit too. It was a bit too ordinary for me, really, that one. So yeah, this is a very important album in the life of Lord Custard, of Custardness, because I think it was the one that probably sealed the lid on everything. Everything Purple was going to be me, and yeah, and brilliant. And to think that I bought this and I listened to this when I was still at school, and here I am now, 18 months off being 60, and I still love it as much as I bought it. That's what music's all about, and that's what's great about it. And yeah, absolutely wonderful. I couldn't possibly live without this. It's one of those that happens if I'm feeling a little bit whatever. I'll tell you what the main thing for me is with this album. I'll give you a bit of an idea. If I'm going out and I'm not really feeling in the mood, or I can't be bothered, I stick this on. By the time we get to Carry a Load, the boots are on, the hat's on, and I'm ready. I'm ready and willing. Next up then, Runner. There you go. Runner, a very short-lived band from the late 1970s. This album, their only album, entitled Runner, came out in 1979, and it was on the short-lived Acrobat label, which is a lovely level. Ian Gillan's Mr. Universe album was also on that. Over here, nice label. I always like this particular label. As you can see, and there's the inner sleeve as well, the lyrics on one side, and the band members on the other side. So, who were the band members of Runner, for those who don't know? Well, they're a sort of almost sort of short-lived supergroup, if you like, because you got the main protagonists in the band really were Alan Merrill, who had been in the teeny bop band, if you like, the Arrows, but was far more than that. He's got a career, or he had a career, sadly died a few years ago of COVID, but he's got a career which is almost like a script from one of those American Disney films. His mother, Helen Merrill, was a really sort of well-known and well-regarded jazz vocalist, and his father, I think, was he was a saxophone player. I can't remember off the top of my head. He's definitely a musician, and he was one of the first sort of Western people to make it big in Japan way back in the early 70s, and he actually acted as well in a Japanese soap opera, I think, but that's for a different video altogether. Anyway, he'd been in the Arrows, and they'd sort of been one of those Mickey Most RAK bands who were sort of in amongst the sort of teeny bopper thing, maybe trying to be the next sort of Mark Bolan. In fact, the Arrows, I think, took over the old Mark Bolan TV slot, and also went out on tour with Sean Woody, which maybe didn't do their credibility that much good, but anyway, who knows. So anyway, after they split up, Alan Merrill got together with his mate Steve Gould, who'd been in a band called Rare Bird, and they were just coming to an end as well, and they decided to put together this band called Runner. Now, add into the mix now Mickey Feet. Now, Mickey Feet is one of those people who's you will go to your record collections, you will look in your cabinet, and you will find the name Mickey Feet on tons of albums. It was with Van Morrison, sessions with Tina Turner, David Gilmour, all sorts of people. He was one of those go-to session bass players that everybody just saw if he was available, and if he was, they tried to get him. And then the fourth member of the band was Dave Dowell. Now, if you've been watching since the beginning of this episode, you'll see that bizarrely these things happen, coincidences and all that sort of stuff. Some people don't believe in coincidences and stuff, but what about this then? We did Whitesnake Ready and Willing earlier, didn't we? Where they just brought Ian Pacing on the drum stool to make it a 50% Deep Purple contingent. Well, the man who vacated the drum seat, Dave Dowell, went straight to the drum seat in this band, Runner. And incidentally, Dave Dowell did say later on in this, because after this he went on to work with Maggie Bell in her band Midnight Flyer, but he said he always thought of himself as a session musician rather than a member of a band anyway. So I don't think there was any great animosity from his point of view about leaving Whitesnake and coming and joining this band. What a Runner like? Well, it's 1979, so get a feeling in your head about what music was starting to sound like then. This is very much a pop rock album type band. If you think around that sort of time, you've got bands like Sniff of the Tears and probably even the early sort of Dire Straits stuff. It's that type of thing. It's also, if things had been marketed right, I think they could have been marketed as the UK version of the Eagles, even though Alan Merrill was American. They were based in Britain. It's got a great feel of that. There's a lot of the songs as well. They're very reminiscent of. They've got some structures, a lot of free tracks, except they've got a little bit more polish on them. Whereas Free were really sort of that old thing they say about muddy tires on them, big tires on a muddy road. But this is more sort of polished poppy sound, but it's got that same sort of structure. I mean, there are some songs on here that are just absolutely brilliant. If this had a different name on the front, but a name on the front that somebody at that point had heard of, or if they'd have been marketed, obviously we all know about Acrobats, shortcomings and all that sort of stuff. This would have sold a million. It's such a good album. It's so well put together. The songs are nicely crafted. A lovely mix of pop rock, a little bit of funk thrown in there, and a little bit of bluesy stuff in there, a bit of soul stuff. And it almost also remind me of Backstreet Crawler, the band that Paul Kossoff put together after he left Free. They've got that sort of structure to the things as well, and you will see from the members of this band, you can tell, can't you, from just the names of the bands that they were in. We said before, Dave Dowell was in those early Whitesnake recordings. He was also Maggie Bell, Midnight Flyer, so you can guess what that's going to be sounding like. He'd also been with the Streetwalkers as well before that, and then you obviously got Alan Merrill with his pop and his arrows type stuff, so you're getting that from there. And Mickey Feet, well, we said we played with everybody. Him and Steve Gould went on to work with Alvin Lee, so you're getting a bit of an idea of what they are going to sound like. And there's just some absolutely cracking songs on this. I think it's been given a re-release on CD by one of those probably no longer with us CD labels, like Repertoire or Angel Air, one of those, made with a few extra tracks on it. But I mean, I can't emphasise enough how polished and sophisticated and really, really good this is. You'll play this once and it'll just become a thing that you'll want to listen to again and again. Bizarrely, given the time that it was recorded. The band never toured. They never played a live gig at all. And apparently during the sessions for the second album, it all sort of fell apart and they won't get a lot of label support, as we know. Acrobat folded not that many records out on Acrobat. Ian Gillan's Mr. Universe is one. This is another, and this one's catalogue number. They both came out in 1979, those two. This one is Acro 1. I can't remember off the top of my head what Mr. Universe is, but I wouldn't be too surprised if it's not Acro 2. Anyway, there you go. So this, yeah, I'm going to put a link into this because I'm pretty sure there will be one. I guarantee you take a listen to this, you're going to be tracking a copy of this down pretty sharpish because you're going to like it. It's brilliant. Late 1970s pop rock crossover with musicians who have learnt their trade, they know what they're doing, they know how to write songs. So, lovely mix of stuff. It's one of my most played and favourite albums. I get it out pretty regularly. If I'll pick out one track on it, I suppose I say you've got to listen to I Just Love Gone Too Long because of the great funky sort of bass starts as well. But there's a couple of singles on there as well. And the other interesting thing with this is as well, it actually charted in America. It got to 160 something in the top 200. That was back in the day, as I always keep saying, when you needed to sell a few records to actually get into the charts. Don't think it charted over here, but that might make it a little bit more difficult to find, I suppose. But yeah, go and have a look for it. Go and find it. I guarantee this. Somebody said today on our Facebook page that they looked up one of the albums that I suggested and it was great and they're glad they bought it. But what happens if I steer you onto something that you don't like? Are they allowed to throw custard pies at me? Well, I'm pretty certain that this isn't going to result in me getting hit by many custard pies.
The Man in the Attic.
Hello there again from The Man in the Attic. I'm lazing on a Sunday afternoon, so thought I'd do another Crush Custard review. And this, again, is a favourite album of mine. And it's one where I think we can begin to appreciate how much changing just one member of a band can just like open up an absolutely almost limitless world of possibilities. Who are this band? You say. Well, it was this band, Rush. And this is Fly By Night, which was, I think, released in 74. Just let me check on that. Oh no, 1975. They had already had one album out, which was their self-titled debut, on which the drummer was John Rutsey, and that was a good album, but more in the sort of fairly straightforward Led Zeppelin riffy kind of rock of the time. Not to be discounted, not at all, because it was a very good album. But then along came this, and along came this man, genuinely recognised as one of the best drummers of all time, Neil Peart, whatever you want to call him, Neil. He absolutely transformed this band, and I remember seeing a review of this album in Sounds. It was probably, here we go again, a Jeff Barton review, and I thought, oh, I'll give that a try. I was, only sort of 16, 17 at the time, and I thought, well, yeah, we'll give that a go. And I was blown away by it, absolutely. One thing you've got to say about it is the production, absolutely top-notch, brilliant, by their long term associate Terry Brown. But it was just the difference in the music. I mean, I hadn't heard the first album before I heard this. Was the first Rush album that I heard, and was just amazed by it. And I thought, I'd begun to play the drums by then, and listening to this guy, it was just like he had the effect on rock drumming, probably that someone like Hendrix had on the guitar. I'd say probably you can lay claim that Neil Peart was the father of modern rock drumming. The really inventive use of the double bass drums. He is an inspiration certainly for people like another favourite drummer of mine, Mike Portnoy. He's certainly the inspiration for people like that, and what a difference he made to this band, not just in his absolutely superb and right on the money musicianship, but also he was a lyricist, and it all became very interesting. So there we go. There's the inner lyric sheet with the I would imagine hand written lyrics by Neil Peart. There's their producer Terry Brown. And what a fantastic record. Again, right from the opening notes of Anthem right through the album. It is great, and of course, they went on to scale enormous heights after this, with albums like Caress of Steel, which I'm not overly keen on. I thought it was a little bit of a treading water period, but then along came 2112 and Hemispheres and Permanent Waves and albums like that. All of them absolutely superb, and you could see their progression through that. I saw them on their first UK tour, which was in 1977. I saw them at Hammersmith Odeon, and fantastic, and to watch Neil Peart play in the flesh, yeah, it was something special. And yes, but a great album right from the off, right from the start of Anthem, Best That I Can, Beneath, Between and Behind, great track. And then their first really sort of prog epic, Baitor and the Snow Dog, where there's the guitar and the bass pedal dual in that. And then Side 2, which opens with Fly By Night, a great track with great acoustic guitar, Making Memories, and then the very Tolkien-esque Rivendell, really, really good track too. And in the end, nice and riffy in the end. But I think we saw with this that Neil Peart was the catalyst for this band moving on from being a good band, a very good band, to a truly great band. He inspired the other two musicians, Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson, without a doubt. And it was a happy meeting of minds and musicians, and they were just made for each other, these three guys. This is not to denigrate John Rutsey's abilities on their first album. He was a good drummer, but you have to say he wasn't Neil Peart. And Neil always came across as a very self-effacing guy. He would never big himself up, but anybody who's ever seen him play, yeah, absolutely tremendous. I kind of lost my way with Rush towards the end of the 80s. I saw them in 77, 78, 79, 80 and 81 on UK tours, and all of them great, but I kind of lost touch with them a little after that, and found some of their later on albums maybe a little more difficult when they got a little bit more keyboard and synthesizer oriented. But this album does it every time for me. If I had to pick one Rush album, and again, I think if you said you can keep sort of 20 albums out of your collection, I think this would have to be one of them. It really was superb for me at the time, and I still enjoy it tremendously now. I did buy it when it first came out on CD, and was really disappointed with the sound of the CD. For me, the vinyl sounds better. You can get the remastered one now which is obviously a huge step up in sound quality. But if you can get the original vinyl of this, and I did buy this in '75 when I was working in my first job, and I was working in a record department of a well-known chemists in the UK, and I've had it since then, and thoroughly enjoy it even now. And again, the sound quality of the album, brilliantly produced. So yes, that's my overview of Rush and Fly By Night. Dig it out and enjoy. See you again soon.
Anastacia, Not That Kind. Anastasia's debut album in 2000. Now this was a bit of a strange time for me. I was going through a major change in my life and stuff, and suddenly finding getting myself interested in all sorts of different types of music again, and also being sort of out and about again in sort of bars and clubs and things at night. And suddenly this sort of person came along, and I thought, wow, she's got a really sort of good, solid voice. This is more than just pop music. At the time, there were quite a few people around where I was starting to think, well, these are actually good, not just a throwaway pop music that we'd had for some years before, and this, the sheer power of some of the songs just really got to me, and it became an album that I played quite a lot, and it was a real surprise for me at that time to have an album that was like nestling towards the top end of the album chart. I mean, yeah, there's one or two times on there where it disappears off into sort of saccharine tinged pop, but a lot of the time it's good, solid, borderline pop rock soul crossover type stuff. It's not you just nonsense pop music. I mean, Cowboys and Kisses and Same Old Story, absolutely brilliant. Obviously the title track, Not That Kind, as well, and it's a great album. Again, it's one of those people that I've never found any of the subsequent albums to be as good as this first one. But this has got some cracking songs on it. Don't dismiss this as a pop album. If you can see a copy of this knocking around, which I'm sure you will, because it was right around the top end of the chart for some time, so there must be millions of copies of that people who got rid of their CD collections. You know, I bet every market or car boot sale you go to, you can probably get a copy of this for a quid or £2. If you do, buy it, because it's more than just those couple of hit singles. There's some really good tracks on this, and it's well worth getting hold of. Anastacia, Not That Kind, from 2000. Another one that's come out of the CD cabinet.
If you enjoyed this episode, please consider pressing those like and subscribe buttons. We hope to see you all again soon.